which may help target some of your comments and questions just in terms of issues that have come up during the director's report about the relationship with JAG and the board. So just briefly, I just want to say the board's historic role with the demonstration of state forests is to approve the management plans. I think we've all on the same page on that. It doesn't actually control historically or interfere with the process of preparing them, although there is an interaction phase later, so that management plans can come to the board, considered complete, and in some cases, there's been a lot of time between the board and the department.
Could you speak in the mic?
More recently, that was the case where we had several buildings not home. There isn't an updated draft plan, so the interesting thing there is where does stuff come to the board, and historically it's come through the management committee, and frequently that's been initiated by the existence of the draft plan. And so the board members may be reluctant to comment on a draft that isn't before them in terms of what is the policy decision. So I think the board members are going to think of this as, we want to hear what you have to say, and that's going to condition the actions and decisions the board makes. So our ears are open on this, and I think it's interesting the whole role of the JAG and what is the reporting structure. And certainly this is an issue I pointed out when Tom Ford was directed to him based on my experience at the Quincy Library Group, which was sort of an early innovation in looking at community, industry, agency engagement in the federal context of planning, which had some issues in terms of very stringent federal restrictions on how advisory committees can be formed and function. And so that was interesting, and I did raise some of the questions which Director Tyler addressed today about what is exactly the structure, where do decisions reside in this structure, and what is the JAG, what is this reporting structure, and I know that the director is aware of the concerns you raised in several of the comments that we've heard about that. You know, what does the charter say? Who's responsible for logistics? What is composition? What are terms? So I think the board is interested in that. We historically the interface between the board and the JAG's immediate operation, if it's not necessarily, it's my understanding, and I think there's confusion of this, according to the chair or to the director. So, we actually do a lot of the meetings once there is a draft in front of us, and we can do that everything for things like this. We can even go to the less formal workshops. One of the reasons we do a lot of evaluation of management plans in the management committee is that we have an easier time doing a give and take on issues that, when the board's meeting in context like this, we have to do this sort of under the open meeting laws, be careful to stick to agendized items. Especially, I think that's frustrating when we get to public forum, that there can't be sort of a back and forth on that. So anyway, I'm very interested in this. You mentioned about getting our feet dirty. I'd be very surprised if there are people members who have not done it. Like you mentioned.
I see. Here's where we took you. Like, you couldn't even do it. Oh, God.
So, what I'm proposing is the board does at least twice a year, since I've been chair, I wanted to get us out of just being in Sacramento and just Sacramento Fellow. And so I've worked with a succession of executive officers to have maybe 1 or 2 fewer meetings, so we might do 10, 11 meetings a year, grab the crowd, and use that part of our logistics budget to get us out of Sacramento to see places. We don't have another trip. We have been to Jackson before, currently calendar, but that's really a decision for the board to make in consultation with whoever the governor's office appoints as the next chair, as to where will you go and when in the course of the year do you get out to run the priority issues that the board needs to go out and get feet on the ground. So just so that you will know, that's kind of the stage from where we are here, but what you tell us may change kind of that dynamic. Okay, so with that, please introduce yourselves as you come to the mic. We've had a request on mic. We all introduce new speakers. There's a clicker on top of the podium, and the trick with this is you have to point it back over your shoulder because it's actually registering on the computer back there, not. So please, the floor is yours, and introduce yourselves as you go.
Can the board screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Does it work, Dave?
Hello, once again. My name's Edwina Lincoln from Roanoke Valley Reservation, and I would like to take this time and this opportunity to be able to share one of our songs, not from Roanoke Valley, but from actually over in the North Coast, what we're talking about. I was honored to be able to meet the last of the shaman people that were from Manchester, Pennsylvania, and that took me in as a young girl and taught me all the different ceremonies in the walk of life that I'm going to speak of, and that's why this area and the land around us that we walk on is so important. But I believe in prayer, I believe in song, I believe in relating to the spirits of the land, because they come back and they guide us and they tell us what we need to do. So I would like to take this opportunity this time to be able to share one of those songs with you today. Thank you.
Oh.
So I would like to want to talk to you guys, because you guys are the ones that make that final decision, I believe. And so first of all, there's been a lot of confusion about the whole banning statement, the connection, tribal consultation. I'm not going to go into that because I think someone else will bring that up. But I want you to be aware that there has been a lack of that. There hasn't been any kind of relationship with the other surrounding tribes, as I said before. There's two that they keep bringing up at the JAG meeting, but we're not allowed to know who those tribal people are. Tribal relationships, and I just want to ask you, do you guys have a copy of that? Has that been reported? Do you guys know who these tribes are that they're having consultation with?
I couldn't say.
Thank you for answering. Okay, so that's our problem as in Indian country, and with my, actually, I'm meeting with my tribal government to inform them about it. So I'm just learning that this is all taking place and that we need to step up and protect and come to a solution to where we're saying not to log, but we want to give management. I mean, isn't that, we all want to find out how we're going to manage this court. And then there is a violation of the AB 52, as well as other laws under our tribal government. I believe that when they talk about these two unknown tribes that we're not allowed to know about, that the other tribes, that CAL FIRE is taking away from our sovereignty rights as tribes. And that we should be the ones to be able to work together, tribal entities work together to be able to come up with a management plan and hand it over to CAL FIRE. So I feel like there's a reverse thing happening here, like CAL FIRE is telling the tribes what to do. So again, that's taking our sovereignty rights away as Native people to make those decisions. Then I would like to I don't like to be in confrontation. I always like to work towards the real goal and to working together. I was really hurt at the last JAG meeting. It was hard for me to manage as a Native woman, getting up and not being loud and not being, being any kind of way of disrespecting of the JAG board. But the chairman of that board actually attacked me and saying that he's not going to listen to me. I can come to the meetings, he's not going to listen to me. He wants me to prove to him who I am and where I come from. And because I said, I do have a resolution from my tribe on the UV committee and acknowledging us and giving us that right to speak. And he goes, well, we're not going to listen to you until you give us that proof. And I felt, like, why are you saying that to me? This is my homeland. I know who I am. I didn't want to go any further. We get all these things in our minds and we want to say, wasn't the place or time to do that. Because I believe in my medicine and I believe in prayer. But I want you guys to know that it was hurtful for him to say that to me because I'm there speaking on behalf of our ancestors, and for him to ask me to prove who my identity is was very disrespectful. And the other JAG members, I wish they would have, at least just one of them had said, hey, that's enough. We're not going to go there. I wish the other members as adults would have at least said something too. This isn't the time or place. I'm learning this, we're all learning together. But I wanted you guys to know that this is what's happening with the JAG board and CAL FIRE as they continue like we're nothing and they don't have to obey any kind of laws, they don't have to do anything because they're making all the decisions. But I believe that you guys are the final people to be able to do that investigation and find out the sensitive part of the meetings and find out why isn't CAL FIRE working with the other tribes. So anything that you need from me, you can contact me through the Round Valley tribes, and they will be actually having other people as well as more of the UV committee members involved in what's happening here. Thank you for your time.
Aloha, aloha e, o ukilahi, yekiu, more Wesley, ko inoa. I am El Kabaine Shivali. I stand here as a guest, a learning guest of Northern Pomo Land. I'm a vision carrier and executive director of Hakakotili, 6-acre indigenous woman-led farm, learning to be in good relations with the people of that land and treat the land. We sit right next to Jackson Demonstration Forest. We became a respite area for the very resilient, wonderful people that were trying to protect that forest and the sacred land that is there. I stand before you today and ask you all to take a moment to remember you are an ancestral seed of this Mother Earth, that each one of you have come from a land that at one time you had cultural attachment to. And that you had sacred songs and your people had sacred ceremonies. And I'm sorry, due to trauma and many other things that a lot of us have faced, you've been ripped apart from it. We are foragers who live off the land. We have forgotten to live in good relations with her. On this beautiful 6 acres, we are unlearning and relearning how to be in better relations. And I ask you, as fellow seedlings of this Mama Earth, for you to do the same. We are wasting time fighting and trying to get you to listen. But hearing what I've heard today, and hearing folks and seeing folks, an indigenous woman of this land shared a prayer with you, and you sat. You sat. An indigenous woman of this land shared her prayer with you, and you sat. I'm going to drop you some nourishment. Next time, don't sit. You are making her invisible. You're not acknowledging her sacredness of this land. Doesn't matter your belief system. What matters is to acknowledge. You want people to acknowledge you. You need to acknowledge her. Found that very disrespectful. So I'm going to leave you that nourishment, word or not. You have indigenous members coming in and they say a prayer, you stand. It's like somebody comes into your house, they need to follow your rules. This is their Aina, this is their land. And your disconnection between your sacredness and your lands, I'm sorry you don't have, but I implore you to find them. I implore you to find them. Jackson Demonstration Force is right there next to Hakakotili. If anything happens to that forest, we are done. Mama Earth is sick, so are we. And her children and all the critters and the water and the earth, everything, the air, all the elements are sick. If she is sick, we are all sick. Anybody that knows and you have an attachment to the land and you're actually listening, she is putting out the biggest 911 call right now. I know as a Kanaka, as a Hawaiian, I've seen what happened to my Aina. The pollution in our water that have hurt our people. The fire that destroyed our Aina. It was because things were rerouted and people did not listen to the people of that land. They begged them to not think of money, but to think of what the indigenous people of that land knew about deterring that water or having the water go other places, destroyed that land and caused the biggest catastrophe. And I lost people. And I can't get that back. But while I'm here on Honolulu, on Turtle Island, I will do what I can to amplify and create spaces for the indigenous people of this land to speak and demand for folks to take the time and listen. Cannot heal this land if you don't listen to the people of this land. That is not pono, that is not good for you. It will make you sick just as well as them and us and the air and the water. I thank you so much for your time. I want you to take a moment of your own time when you're in your quiet space. Take a deep breath and think about the water you drink, the air you breathe, the land that you grow food on, and eventually we're going to have to be growing a whole lot more food. The direction that we are going, is that food you would feed your children? Is that air that you would want your children to breathe, your grandchildren to breathe? Is that water you would want your grandchildren, your children to breathe? So there's nothing like handing the military a glass of water from a tap that they expected us all to drink out of, and they wouldn't drink it. Don't be them. Mahalo nui for your time.
My name is Larry Aguilera, and before I read my presentation, I'd like to clear my mind. Apologize if I come across emotional or if I hit a nerve. It's never my intention to harm anyone. You know, we walk in beauty, we walk with our hearts open. Life is a perspective, how you see things and how we see things. And that's what we'll bring you, it's how we see things, how we feel. So we just hope you can open up your hearts to see how we feel. The management meeting yesterday, it was said that it's a business meeting, and to conduct business, stay focused to task at hand. And I thought about it, and I said, for me, it's not business, it's personal. You know, saving a tree, it's personal. I'm not getting paid to be here. I'm in fact losing money by coming here. You know, money isn't everything. I don't care. You know, I have to worship how I feel. Those are for the trees. Those are for our critters. Those are for our ancestors. And the other thing I have to say to clear my conscience is I stand with Palestine, because that kind of genocide happened here in America and is still happening here today, you know, but it's more sophisticated here because it's cultural genocide. When you kill a tree, you're killing what we are, you know, and that's genocide, you know. We've already lost enough ancestors, so why are we losing more? You know, help us to help you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. As the Board of Forestry, you speak for all the trees in California. I came here to speak for the trees in Jackson Demonstration Forest. I came with the coalition for 3 reasons. 1, to protect sacred sites. 2, co-management. And 3, to save the trees from being cut down for profit. I grew up as an American, just like you. But I also grew up as an indigenous person. I'm living the American dream. You know, I have material things, but that's not enough. You know, in my heart, I know I must fight for the ones without a voice. Mother Earth, the trees, the critters that live here, and the ancestors at Jackson Demonstration Forest. There are sacred sites there, places where ancestors lay to rest in peace. Places where indigenous people escaped the genocide from the greed and the gold and the land. What if Americans in World War II lost? How would you feel if they built strip mines on your cemeteries, or built logging roads or bicycle paths through your sacred sites? Ask yourself, what would you do to protect your sacred sites? And I hope it's not Fort Knox. Your boss, the governor, has stated he wanted co-management with indigenous tribes as it pertains to land and forest. Co-management implies that he wants help managing the forest. We as indigenous people have watched the land deteriorate to the point that we are now facing global warming and fires that are out of control. My ancestors were managing the land long before the United States came to being. We lived in balance and harmony, and Americans, when they came here, they found beauty and abundance here. Now we are powerless and subjugated to watching our Mother Earth being raped. All we had was our prayers and our ceremony, and that's what we did. As a race, the human race, we stand at the threshold of global destruction. Your boss came to us so that we could help by way of co-management. It takes a strong leader to ask for help. And we opened our hearts, and we stand ready to help with more prayers, more ceremonies, including co-management for the land and the forest. I recently learned that there are policies being made by the government to government, policies being made in secret that tribes could not be named. What happened to accountability and transparency? Are these just buzzwords like co-management? I'd like to mention 5 other policies that were made in the darkness that not too many Americans know about that happened to indigenous people. 1, they divided up the reservation in order to take more land away. 2, they put kids in boarding schools to take them away from their families. 3, they sterilized Indian women without their consent. 4, they did frontal lobotomies without their consent. And 5, forced relocations into the cities. You may ask yourself, oh, that was long ago, but you'd be wrong. I'm married to a strong, beautiful, indigenous woman right over there who had all these 5 policies done over at her family. That's historical trauma. But the real question is, are you ready to listen and do the right thing? Jackson State Demonstration Forest is in my backyard. I live in Willis. When I heard that there were trees being cut down for profit at a state park, I was saddened. Through history, American genocide, I learned that there are 4 types of American: doing the killing, supporting the killing, not caring of the killing, and trying to stop the killing. Trees are the same way: cutting, supporting, not caring, or trying to stop it. Which one of these are you? It's a state park, not a commercial logging forest. Or is it? I learned that in its conception in the 40s, it was written in to have commercial logging. Why? Are you listening? Do the right thing. You're smart enough to know 1 tree cut for profit is 1 less breath of air for mankind and closer to global destruction. How did we get here in the face of global annihilation? Mother Earth is going to do what she's going to do in the end, with or without us. Can you do the right thing because it's the right thing to do and not for profit? Unless it's business as usual. As an American, and I am, because I was raised as an American like you, we were taught the devil is in the detail. But as an indigenous person, in my heart, we learned that the creator is in the details. So why not be a creator?
Hello everyone, my name is Andy Wellspring. It is a great honor in my life to be able to speak with the people that we just heard from today. I'm another member of the Coalition to Save Jackson State Forest. I really wish you could, that the room was oriented differently, because the point of this slideshow was for you to see how beautiful all the critters and the landscape and trees and plants and mushrooms are out there, and because they're not here with us, and it's a nearly 9-hour round trip to get here. I've spent tons of money, and we're, like Clary said, it's hard to be here. So we really do encourage you to come and meet and see how many more people, as you can see in the photos too, how many more people didn't make this trip with us today that support this coalition. I want to thank Ms. Castro also for providing me with a copy of our written statement, from which myself and another member of the coalition will be sharing some parts of now. But we do welcome you to respond to us in writing. We have an email address here that you could each, after your time to reflect on all the knowledge we shared with you today, we would love to be back in writing. The coalition to save Jackson State Forest is a broad coalition. You've heard from tribal members, both Coast Yuki and Northern Pomo. We are also conservationists, environmental justice advocates, mountain bikers, mushroom hunters and hikers, everyone from high school students to elders. We advocate for the biological and cultural resources in JDSF. And thank you for this chance to be on your agenda. Our goals are consistent with California's 30 by 30 conservation legislation and with Governor Newsom's 2020 Statement of Administration Policy regarding Native American ancestral lands. As you know, JDSF is the largest state forest in California. As you hopefully now are understanding from today, it is located in unceded ancestral Northern Pomo and Coast Yuki territory. Coast redwoods are a dominant species on JDSF. They sequester, according to the scientists in our coalition, and they sequester and store more carbon than any other tree species on the planet. Yet, in the face of the current climate crisis, CAL FIRE continues to contract with timber operators to log the forest commercially and poison the native tan oak trees with herbicide, even though these trees contain huge food and cultural value to local tribes. The ongoing logging, road building, and herbicide use have seriously damaged the ancestral cultural resources within the forest and devastated this beautiful biodiverse ecosystem, which is contrary to the stated goals of protection and of these biological and cultural values. Well, members of our coalition and the general public have grievances with CAL FIRE in that attempts to use the proper channels of CAL FIRE and the JAG have been frustrated, which is why we find ourselves before you here today. We believe you have the responsibility of ensuring a fair, legal, public process regarding the administration of these public lands. Failed communications through these channels are many, but they include CAL FIRE representatives repeatedly shirking the legal requirements to conduct government-to-government consultations with area tribes pursuant to AB 52 amendments to CEQA. In addition to this, the JAG and CAL FIRE are not responding to letters that we've submitted as public comments, nor even commenting on them during their meetings. We've been told, oh, let's have a private conversation after the meeting or something. No, that's my daughter. You gotta pause. She's in the room. You gotta leave these trees alone. You gotta leave them alone. It should be treated like a state park. I'm going to leave with you also today. This is a packet that includes letters we've never gotten responses to by either CAL FIRE nor the JAG. I put most of that responsibility on CAL FIRE, not the JAG, as CAL FIRE is constantly directing the JAG, agendas and whatnot, and the JAG members are saying, hang on a second, we need more time for these issues. One major thing, CAL FIRE put out a new major policy, the 2022 vision. They just announced it. There was no discussion on the JAG about this policy. There was no public input. They said we listened to the public input generally, but it's a major policy. They're supposedly reorienting timber harvest plans according to this new vision, but yet there has been no official public comment allowed on it. All right. So, amongst these grievances, right, we have a vision for JDSF. It's been agreed to by the diverse members of our coalition. We call on the state of California to negotiate in good faith, with the local tribes of this area, all tribes ancestral to the area who wish to be a part. This is how CAL FIRE and the state could live up to the governor's policy directive in 2020 to pursue co-management with tribes. As a white person, born and raised, lived in California my whole life, I want nothing more than as a guest in this beautiful land that is California. Please, the state of California needs to fulfill this goal of the governor's I can't even, it's hard to describe in words, like how good it made me feel that the leader of our state is finally apologizing for the horrible things, some of which have been described to you already. To make amends for that is so important. I want this to be done in my lifetime. I want this to be done as soon as possible, but it's going to take time. So you have to talk to all the tribes and really work with them. The California Democratic Party recently has called for tribal co-management of JDSF, and they represent approximately 10 million registered California voters. We have a copy of the resolution for you here, as well as other letters of support from large organizations. And one thing, just to say about this co-management, it's very clear that when CAL FIRE created a tribal advisory council, they will not be co-managing the forest. We believe that mere advisory status is disrespectful to the sovereign nations on whose land we all live. We have for you also an example from the nation of Canada, who is partnering with local tribes in creating a park called the Denoised Park Reserve. It's a three-way consensus between the federal government of Canada, the tribes, and the province in which that land is located. We have a copy for you here. They have a consensus, three-way consensus. They all must agree before anything takes place. And it's working, it's beautiful. We also have locally in Mendocino, northern Mendocino area, the Simeone Intertribal Simeone Wilderness Council, who have already proven to the state and the world that they can effectively restore regular ecosystems. Thousands of acres already happening. The last thing I'd like to say before I pass it to my colleague is that the state's own BETS report was commissioned in 1999. It found that extreme degradation of cultural village sites was routine in JDSF, both via logging and road building under CAL FIRE management. And they urged a work stoppage until a thorough survey of cultural sites could be conducted. It's long past time to heed these calls, as JDSF contains a myriad cultural village sites, sacred sites, and connecting trails. A cultural landscape, as it's being called by anthropologists, that is worthy of protection as a UNESCO World Heritage Site of the United Nations. I'd ask to leave you with the question, have you reviewed the BETS report and noted how far out of compliance CAL FIRE's management of JDSF truly is in regards to cultural site protection?
Hello, my name is Karen Pickett, and I come today as a representative of a 30-year-old nonprofit associated with forest protection in the Bay Area that's affiliated with the Ecology Center, which is a nonprofit environmental organization that's been operating in the Bay Area for over half a century. And my organization is also a member of the Coalition to Save Jackson. So I'm sharing the presentation of our abbreviated version of what we wrote up as a coalition for our vision for Jackson Forest. Although I hope that, as Andy said, everybody does read the full vision statement, because we tried to include everything that we thought was pertinent to bring before the board, but it was too much to present verbally in this time frame. So to continue with the abbreviated version of our vision, from where Andy left off, we call on the state of California to declare a moratorium on logging, road building, and herbicide use until tribal co-management is in place and a revised forest management plan reflecting tribal and environmental concerns is codified. The way that things are operating with the discussion about the management plan is really putting the cart before the horse, to be talking about approving the scope of work for the management plan before these other things are in place that, that CAL FIRE and the JAG have expressed a commitment to, including looking at approval of timber harvest plans. State Assembly Member Wood wrote in a letter to Chairman Hunter of the Coyote Valley Band of Pomo Indians, I agree, quote, I agree that until these policies have been reviewed and changes made, that is, the new policies that would be brought forth in a new management plan, that no new timber harvest plan should be considered, close quote. And also State Senator McGuire concurred at a town hall meeting in March of 2022. So the state cannot continue to log ADSF while simultaneously negotiating a co-management agreement with area tribes. Things must be done in the appropriate order. A good faith negotiation requires a continued pause to logging, which gives space for tribes and the state to negotiate a fair agreement. Good faith negotiations at this time are not happening. However, we do welcome a new management plan for Jackson Forest, as the current one disregards climate change, does not adequately address indigenous land management, and prioritizes logging over restoration, and is clearly outdated and needs to be brought into the 21st century. So we reject CAL FIRE's and the state's attempt to move forward on a new management plan. Before and without, one, applying sequence of the management plan revision process. Two, applying the AB 52 CEQA amendment provisions to the THP preparation process at Jackson Forest. And three, establishing equal co-management with tribes. Co-management must first be established, and then the task of co-managers will be to create a mutually agreed upon management plan. It's really only logical. And once a co-management plan is established with local tribes, we advocate that the new management plan contain protections for JDSF in line with California's 30/30 goal to preserve 30% of California's land and coastal waterways by 2030, while still allowing restoration and tribal management. This has already been spoken to today, but the carbon sequestration and storage potential, the biodiversity, the recreation opportunities, and the tribal significance of JDSF make it a top priority for conservation under the state's 30 by 30 initiative to help avert impending climate catastrophe. Management goals for this gem of a forest should be oriented towards restoring marbled murrelet, coho salmon, and northern spotted owl populations through tending the land according to traditional ecological knowledge, including cultural fire practices and regrown old-growth forests. The California Environmental Quality Act must be applied to any revisions to the management plan because environmental review is legally required of all projects which, quote, may cause either a direct physical change in the environment or a reasonably foreseeable indirect physical change in the environment. And CAL FIRE itself calls the management plan the document that guides all the management activities for the forest, which will certainly cause direct physical change in the environment. So clearly, a document as important as the new management plan requires environmental review, if any document ever did. Very contrary to our vision, and even contrary to existing laws, notably AB 52 amendments to CEQA, CAL FIRE forest management is continuing outdated forest management, which amounts to destruction of the entire ecosystem. CAL FIRE forest managers have disregarded representatives of area tribes in violation of established government-to-government negotiation protocols. And people have already spoken about the fact that they said the CAL FIRE said at the meeting that the participation is confidential. And the basic problem with that is that confidentiality cannot be wielded only when it suits CAL FIRE. And that is how it's being wielded right now. Furthermore, we have concerns with CAL FIRE's decisions to not regulate local timber companies according to established laws. Recently discovered was a non-publicized conflict of interest that CAL FIRE clearly knew about, where several timber companies are currently suing CAL FIRE, while one of the same companies also has representation on the Jackson Advisory Group, advising CAL FIRE in an official capacity for approximately a year since the lawsuit was filed. That's a very clear conflict of interest. All of this has served to stymie our efforts to protect the redwoods, the oaks, the rivers, the fish, the critters, the birds that would thrive if JDSF, if the biodiverse forest were protected from commercial logging, and if the management authority was returned to the northern Como post-Yuki people who for thousands of years tended the land in such a way that created the towering old-growth forests full of medicinal plants, abundant food sources, and clean fresh water. It's time to mend the relationship between the state of California and the original people of the land and to heal the land. This is required by any measure of morality, and traditional ecological knowledge is the most effective way to reverse climate catastrophe caused by the industrial age and ensure a livable planet for everyone. It's time for the state of California to stop breaking its promises to Native American tribes and work together with them to sustainably manage state lands and protect sacred sites. Is it not for the best good of the people of California, for the first inhabitants of this land, for all the other species, plant and animals, and for the earth to have the ideals of the highest and best use and vision for the land to guide whatever we do to manage it? And traditional ecological management and climate mitigation and protection of sacred sites are the highest and best use of Jackson Forest. Is it not sustainable? Is not sustainability, respect for tribal sovereignty, and climate mitigation not something we want to demonstrate? We believe it is. The bottom line responsibility for the actions and policies of CAL FIRE and the JAG lies with the Board of Forestry. Someone spoke earlier about, being within your purview, your responsibility to look at a draft plan once it comes before you. However, governments and bureaucracies are based on hierarchy, and we know how these hierarchies work in the state of California. And the Board of Forestry has responsibility for other agencies, for advisory boards, and how they carry out their activities and how they develop policies. So yes, it is your responsibility, and that's why we've come here today. After so many broken promises and words without action, the buck stops here with the Board of Forestry. There is too much at stake to ignore these issues. The time for change is now. Thank you.
Go ahead, I'll continue.
How many more speakers and comments when I open this public comment? I'm not cutting off, I'm just curious.
Two.
Okay.
Three. Oh, nice. Three.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'll go last.
Clean up better.
Thank you. Matthew Simmons, Environmental Protection Information Center. I'll be really quick because I've already heard a lot of information. But I want to address Chair Gillis. I absolutely think the board needs to come to Jackson and have a meeting next year. This is, how often do you guys get members of the public in meetings to come and share how they're feeling about forestry? It's difficult for folks to come to Sacramento, and because this is such an important issue, I think it would be really important for me to come and hear directly from folks out there. And not all of them are going to agree with us, by the way. You'll hear from other people too. The other thing I just wanted to touch on, going all the way back to getting this meeting, we saw the return of Tim Harvest plants this year. And it sort of put a socket wrench in the gears of working on the dimension, right? Because, we thought we might have to go back to that place of conflict that we were in a couple of years ago. And I understand, that that's how you guys have been doing things for a long time, but I don't think that urgency should be there. I think that we should be working together on finding the funding and the appropriations to make sure that everyone can do their jobs at CAL FIRE, that you can keep doing. I know that there's other work going on for us that isn't commercial lobbying, that is probably something you agree about often. And so I just want to say that we can be a resource to the board and to CAL FIRE in terms of talking to legislators, advocating, and that the board should have the funding it needs to do this rewrite of the energy plan correctly, right? And the time that that's going to take. I think if you reach out to a tribe and they don't respond right away, that's not a okay, go ahead. That's a we need to do a better job reaching out. And that takes time and that takes money. And so let's work together on figuring out ways to make sure that happens in a good way. Thank you.
Is there somebody else? I'm sorry. I just, if I can't laugh at my life, what can I do? It's point. Try not to take myself too seriously. As far as I watch you guys, I watch your presentations, I listen to the chief, and I listen to your questions, my gut tells me that your documents have convinced you that logging old redwoods is not only environmental friendly, but it brings in revenue to cover some of the programs that you decided to cover in your presentation. That's what I've seen in this meeting. And I would say as long as you're going to continue to believe that, then you're not seeing what I see out in force with my own eyes. Because if you continue to believe that, I would love to take you where I would show you the clear cuts. They are acres and acres of clear cuts. I would love to take you there so you could realize that the documents you're looking at don't match your eyes anymore. And that's what we're saying, and that's why we bring pictures to let you guys know it's being mismanaged very badly. And so since you guys are going to continue with likely too long for revenue to support your programs, and because you think it's more friendly to cut old redwoods, we're never going to come to some sort of agreement on logging old redwoods. And that's the real thing. That's what everybody wants to avoid is that word, but it really is. And that's what it is. So I would say that we should together push to put this land into the 30 by 30 so we can conserve it. That's what I would say. If we all want to move forward together, and it's really not about revenue and the programs, we know if you really believe that it's about the environmental and it's doing better, let me show you, I'll convince you in one day, full day, how you can see different. You'll believe different, trust me. And if not, I can send you pictures too. My email is hunter@pacific.net. I can show you all the proof that I took it. You got any drones out there who did it wrong. But if we're really, really trying to protect this land, which my sacred sites, my family's sacred sites are on, which doesn't seem to matter much. Put it in the 30 by 30. That's where you challenge yourself. Challenge yourself to go push this and put it in the 30 by 30. Thank you.
I think if that's the last speaker on this, I'm going to move to, oh, I'm sorry. I have a bunch of requests to speak on the topic, but I wanted to say who were the folks doing the presentation from this week. All right, so I'm going to move to recognizing people who put in cards, and then we end with people that are online. So Dan, so that we're not at cross purposes shuffling cards. Yes.
Is it after public comment that the board would be asking us a question?
I'm not sure if members will ask questions as the papers are I would think that there were some issues with the legal environment in which we operate. People, organizers, I always try to give questions and they can move along. But things like how we interact through email, we actually would be invited in some instances to back on a comment that you had sent us that was part of the board's business and would create what's called serial meeting under state. So there's a bunch of restrictions that we operate on as a board or commission that agency people don't operate under. There's California's strictest open meeting laws around, and so sometimes what seems like a natural way to communicate with law and electric is actually a violation of state. So we're really careful on that. Whereas a lot of our work, when we're in a regulatory mode, we have prescribed and administrative procedures that way. We have to acknowledge all substantive comments when we're putting forward regulatory text. So it seems very stilted. Sometimes I think, well, just very difficult, frankly, for me, if you knew me in my family.
But just to clarify briefly then, our email address is an organizational email address, and you all could reply, instead of individually, I'd modify that request to be as a group.
That's right, although we get into some constraints about editing as a committee of the whole and the amount of time we have here, and so sometimes we can put back a comment, but it has to be, well, let's just say there are limited ways that I can do what you would like. And more often when I would talk to someone like you, I would do so explicitly in my hat back when I dean at natural resources at Berkeley or something, because this is quite restrictive. And so it's not that we are not hearing you, but the way we interact with you is times to be very formalized. And
certainly, yeah.
So I just want to make sure you understand that I'm hearing you. I think it was Jason's comment earlier about the difficulties of economics. In the context we're trying to have this discussion, yeah, I can quote to you out of the land ethic about the problems with when you value the sound of a songbird, you invent some economic subterfuge in order to move it into public policy because you want to protect it. So I think we are hearing you.
But to restate my initial question just now was, are you going to respond to us before or after the public comment?
I will offer after public comment any opportunity, but I want to make sure that we are hearing everybody within the time we have before we're going back. So I'll open it to the board. I don't know what to do. You made a lot of excellent points, and I think it's going to be reflected. Things like your reference to the way First Nations claims and co-management's being worked out between the provinces, the federal government, and the First Nations in Canada. I've been on some of those things. It is a good model. We frequently should look to Canada. They're doing some stuff way in advance. So we're noting all that stuff, and we are very much all right. So, but I do want to move to the public comment before I ask the board if they would like to ask questions to you. Yeah.
Okay, so we do have two people for hand raised. You'll come after the public comment, okay, in person. First up would be Phyllis Aguilera.
Hi,
Hi.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I'm Phyllis Aguilera, as you mentioned, and I'm a member of the Native Nation, which is also known as the Navajo Nation. And the way that we talk as Indigenous people is that first I need to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this land, because I am a guest here, since I am not from this area. But I do have to respect the people who lived here, and who are living here. And so that brings me to the point that in listening to all the presentations and the reports that I did hear the word mentioned training in one of the presentations or reports. And I do not know the details, and it was not, didn't have time for the person to present the details of the training, but I did want to share and suggest however the process works, and whoever needs it to be filtered down. I think it would be a great idea to include cultural training, because on my end, the Navajo Nation provides cultural training with any non-natives so that they will learn our culture, or how we work, how we operate, what kind of people we are. Because people have different opinions of who we are and what we are based on maybe meeting one Navajo, whatever. But I think, just a suggestion, that it could be filtered down to have the cultural training included when working with the tribes. To me, that seems like you have to know that the people, our people, from the different lands and the different cultures, that there's a lot of similarities, but there's also differences. So it seems to me that if we want to come to an agreement, that would be a critical training to consider and implement, so that we can all save on the earth and save the earth for our future generations, which, it's sad as an elder person, and seeing the destruction, as has been mentioned before, and it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing for our future? There's all these policies of everything that bog all this stuff down. But I think it needs, by you learning our position as Indigenous people, learn from us, what have you done? That's going to help solve some of the problems. I think we're kind of way past saving the world, but at least we can attempt to in our lifetime. So thank you.
Okay, next up is Craig Peterson.
As everyone has said, thank you for allowing us to give input here today from the public. Really depend on you guys to carry out some of the information we give you in forming opinions and working for us. I live in El Dorado Hills, which is 30 miles east of here, so I might be a little different than a lot of the people that have spoke here. I want to say that I've recreated in the Jackson demonstration state forest for probably 35 years. I've been involved in a lot of group recreational activities, and so I've interfaced with hundreds of recreational users there. And so I think I can speak for the majority of them. We've had lots of discussions, both during our activities there and over beer and meals later. Most of the people there have big concerns about the commercial harvesting of timber in the Jackson Demonstration State Forest. And those people come from all over the state. They come from other states. They come from other countries, other continents. So this isn't just a local thing, and I want to make sure that you guys understand that. And most of these people are much younger than myself and most of the members of the board. So they're employed, they live distances from here. So as the people that have come from the Mendocino area expressed, it's hard to get here. It's hard to get here from El Dorado Hills. It's an hour and 20-minute drive because of the traffic. But it doesn't mean that people throughout the state aren't concerned because you're not seeing them. If it weren't for demographics and employment, this room would be full of people that are expressing the same concerns that you're hearing here. So I could go on and on about agreeing with all the things that have been said, but I would like to see, in my ideal world, that we would end commercial timber harvesting in the Jackson Demonstration State Forest, because redwood is, not a necessary building material. It's used in fences and decks primarily. From what I've heard, the demonstration forest produces less than 2% of the redwood harvesting in the state. So it's not like we have a deficiency of available redwood by cutting out that amount. And the problem with it being a commercial thing in the Jackson Demonstration State Forest is that the most valuable redwood is the big redwood, the old redwood. And so it creates a bias when you're creating timber harvest plans, when you're using that revenue to fund activities for all the demonstration state forests. There's going to be a bias to harvest the large ones, and we all know all the benefits of a large old redwoods. So wouldn't bother to go through all that. But that seems to be the solution, and I would like the board to work towards a legislative change, because CAL FIRE in some ways hands are tied. They need to produce revenue. What's the best way to do it? Sell large redwoods. So there needs to be a legislative change to where that's not the mandate. The mandate is for preservation of the forest, recreation, and all the more beneficial ways that forest can be cared for. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Karen Pickett.
Oh, I'm good.
Next up is Gary Hughes.
Hello, Chair. Hello, Directors. My name is Gary Hughes, and I work as the Americas Program Coordinator with an international organization called Biofield Watch. We're a member of the coalition, and we stand strongly with the American coalition. There is a crisis in forest governance in California, and the situation at Jackson Demonstration State Forest is a case study in this crisis. I want to share them a little bit of history with you, how I got some insight about exactly how bad the situation is. So I've been involved with supporting the coalition and securing these changes in management at Jackson for some time, and then it was in summer 2022 that I was approached by someone that told me that SCS Rural Services was doing interviews about the resource manager certification that Mendocino Road Company had that included Jackson Demonstration State Forest. I prepared for that interview much better than I prepared for offering comments today. I spent a fair amount of time with the interviewer from SCS, and I laid out for him a long list of my concerns about what was going on at Jackson. Issues like how CAL FIRE had made references denying the existence of anthropogenic climate change in timber harvesting. Got the evidence we've shown it. Evidence about CAL FIRE making changes to documents from Fish and Wildlife before posting them online in regards to harvestings. Questions simply about feedstock sourcing for the pellet mill in Calapella, which is, a controversial project that hasn't received enough attention. I laid down a long list of concerns. with the interviewer, and I was told that, okay, we'll get back to this later. But then I was informed, in following up with representatives from SCS Global Services, that Mendocino Redwood Company had simply, forgive me if I'm not using the right term, but had retired that certification. Case closed. Nothing more to be said, nothing more the public could do. I got some media to try to call Mendocino Redwood Company. No response, no statement, no public comment whatsoever. My point being then that if Forest Stewardship Council is supposed to be a flagship for marketing sustainability, not only in California, but the United States and across the world, what is going on with CAL FIRE that the company that owns that certification decided they just want to back out altogether? No more scrutiny whatsoever. So my point being is that the situation at Jackson Demonstration State Forest is very, very serious. CAL FIRE has failed to protect the public interest, and I would even hazard that there's very serious dynamics of conflict of interest here for the Board of Forestry. So we stand very strongly, Biofuel Watch stands very strongly with the coalition. We think it is high time that there be a very serious change in management at Jackson Demonstration State Forest. You know, we're very skeptical of the 30 by 30 scheme, both here in the state, nationally, and especially internationally. I think there's a lot of settler colonialism baked into the 30 by 30 frame. I think it's obvious that Jackson's Demonstration State Forest is pretty low-hanging fruit for the state of California in terms of really making some serious progress in 30 by 30. Now, it's an easy move for you to make. And, you know, the last thing I would say is that people are gathered in Dubai right now for a very oily United Nations climate change meeting. But again, it's really, you know, academically known now that one of the best ways to protect landscapes, biodiversity, and other resources, cultural resources, spiritual resources within the landscape is to grant that land tenure to indigenous people. So you have a lot of really great options right now with Jackson, and I hope that the Board of Forestry will make the right decision. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Richard Diener.
Richard Gayer, for the Forest River in North California Sheriff Club Committee. A lot to digest. Things should be easy, but there's a false THD urgency, like the pressure on CAL FIRE to get the JAG to approve the Camp One Harvest Plan. And it's not going to be approved up for real approval for 2 years. One of the things that happened with that so-called consensus that the sheriff thought was just a majority rule deal is that I was told it was the first time that the JAG has had any opposition to approving a harvest plan that was brought before them. Oh my gosh. So I think we need to take that into consideration. I mean, you really can't afford, in a lot of different ways, to do what happened in 2011, to take a consensus in that case, the plan at that time, to have full representation. I mentioned that before. Mike was on that consensus. Maybe you could tell you some stories. And then the board took significant parts of it that there was a full consensus on and took it out. And people who were on that advisory committee, I don't know if they quit en masse, but a lot of people, that was like 2 months after all of that, to have the board override something that had a true consensus. We need to get beyond the status quo. We need to make a positive reality out of a broke gold rush, timber rush, fish rush, green rush, something. There is another way to get the balance, to reorder things, and it's a big deal. And I have a hard time being positive, laying there listening to the I-80, I-5s and their jets taking off. How are we going to do this? In Jackson, and forests and people and relationships the way we have to. We're not going to be able to change everything once. We need to get examples that are real examples of the way of history. We got hope for change. We're conflicted with pain. We need to take a walk on a real path. And it's going to take examples, because we're not going to change everything at once. We need to get where people are actually having a path in reality and gaining respect and working together. And not to use Gary Snyder's name in vain, but as he indicated, that was one of the hardest things to do, is to work together. And it's imperative that we do that. Now, I hope that Edith Hannigan isn't sick. I hope she's on vacation. But I sent 2 things to her. A clarion call, something I wrote about all this, with lots of links to important things that you may be aware of, or maybe haven't. And 2 of those things that's very important, that hasn't had much focus on, the JAG or otherwise, is an incredible letter, I call it more than a letter, from John O'Brien and Steve Sullivan, relative to Jackson and climate change, in general relevance, and then in specific input on what they feel steps need to be taken in Jackson. And that is very important to be included in the considerations. This is broad. Co-management, you've heard that of the essence, but it's a broad thing that includes climate and working together. And one thing I will bring up, and I've done it often, is that at the June, I think it was 2022, when the management committee actually, it was an informational hearing, and what occurred there was the Tribal Relations Subcommittee of the JAG had a report. And that, to my mind, in a certain way, the Tribal Relations Subcommittee report and the O'Brien-Sillett paper, that's sort of a dual focus that can get you out of this, but it needs to be transcended. And also at that meeting, Priscilla Hunter, Michael's mother, had, and that was in the record in that meeting, about Soda Gulch timber harvest land. And she laid out what was perfectly reasonable protections for what she saw as the essence of the cultural sites and values on that harvest land. And she's never gotten a formal reply to her letter. She's had sort of informal response by Cal Fire. But these are, what she brought up is like the sea change that's needed, so that this isn't just where you find it and then you bury a site to protect it. It's like actually give the respect and the relationship in that cultural reality of these rights. And then you get right back into co-management. So it's really going to move me today to have the input, the sharing from today. I really enjoyed seeing these photographs. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Michael Hunter.
I'm good, I'll pass, thank you.
Teresa Morales.
Hello, my name is Teresa Morales. I'm new to the coalition to save Jackson Forest. Thank you for letting me speak. This is my first time in Sacramento. At the entrance to this building are some true words. Nature is not a place to visit, it is home. Again, nature is not a place to visit, it is home. Not only is Jackson Forest a physical home to countless plant and animal species, it has been a refuge of the spirit for countless generations of people, as it is for me now. People seeking healing and connection to the earth from which all life emerges. I moved to the Mendocino Coast 20 years ago from the concrete suburbs of the Bay Area for exactly this purpose, to find healing and connection with the source of life that can be heard and felt so clearly in these precious wild places. When I walk in the forest, the trees sing life and remembrance of what is valuable and true into every cell of my body, and call me to help defend them, so that they may continue to stand tall and provide spiritual sustenance for future generations of all species. Can you not see the value of this pristine spiritual resource? If it is just money you want, if it is the dollars alone that drive you to cut down these cherished trees, please stop and reconsider. This radiant forest could be a co-managed perpetual blessing for the tribes and all who come seeking renewal and rejuvenation, because people are willing to pay to have access to these wild and beautiful places and want to preserve this crucial oasis of healing and wholeness in our concrete world. Please, open your eyes, open your hearts. Please save Jackson Forest. Once again, the words on the wall out there: nature is not a place to visit, it is home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Matthew Simmons.
You can skip it. You can skip it.
Yulani Moore Wesley.
Aloha o Ilani Yakel Moore Wesley, Ho'oinoa. Again, I am a visitor here on this beautiful land. Give honor and respect to the indigenous people of this land that we stand right now. Greetings, my fellow seedlings of this earth. I hope you are listening today, but not just with your eyes and your ears, but with your hearts. The hearts of all your elders before you, your ancestors before you, and all that are coming. I hope you are truly listening. You have an opportunity here to change things, to be a better example. I am a mother, and I think sometimes, as a mother, as a nourisher, as a responsibility to my children, you have to take the time to help them see a different perspective, so they can honor the process of healing or honor the process of learning. Michael Hunter pointed out something today that I think I just wanted to say one more time. His eyes told a different story. When you visited the forest, you probably got a different perspective. I ask you to go into the forest with different eyes, with an open heart, so you can see things differently. So I really hope you listen. And many of us that have been out in the forest, our eyes are not lying. We are seeing something different. Get your boots on, go barefoot, do whatever you have to. Don't stand on the outside of the forest, get in it. I am big and fluffy, and I have been up in it. And I'm telling you, what you say is happening, it's not what's happening. She is being destroyed. She has feeling she is alive, and you feel the destruction in her. And if you don't, there's a problem. So with my children, sometimes I ask them to put on a different pair of eyes. When they're complaining about the houselessness, folks that we run into the street begging, when they complain about different things, I ask them to put on a different set of eyes so they can see another perspective. I'm asking you to do the same. And sometimes as nourishers, as I believe you all are, sometimes we have to nourish others, like Cal Fire. No disrespect. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but sometimes you have to share that nourishment of, maybe we need to put on a different pair of eyes and get a different perspective, and let us help them see it. Because this greed and take is hurting this land, it's hurting this island, she's sick. And we are not going to be quiet. The indigenous people of this land are here and they will be here. They are resilient, badass, and strong. They're not going anywhere, and all of us that stand with her, we're going to get them louder. So be a responsible seedlings. Make a beautiful example of what could be. Starts with you. Hallelujah for your time. Thank you.
Thomas Yates.
Hello, my name is Thomas Yates. I from Sacramento, but I spent 30 years living in the redwood zone of the lower Russian River in Sonoma County on the coast. We're experiencing a collision of management actually here. 10 to 14,000 years ago, the indigenous people arrived in this area. Science, analysis, and they learned to manage the land. And there were millions and millions of indigenous people living north of the bay. And they managed the land to where it had peak productivity. Unbelievable salmon runs. This is all before the conquistadors came. So after 150 years ago or so, when the settlers came, we have new managers come in and take over. The new management plan has not been sustainable. The new management plan has destroyed the ability of our planet to convert carbon into oxygen, because those giant forests were key, absolutely key, in the balance of the atmosphere, of the chemical makeup of the atmosphere. So I think if you look at it this way, that, for example, 120 years